Our story kicks off in the Elfrieden kingdom, where a group of mages are busy casting a fancy summonings, probably their last hope to save the kingdom from an oncoming demon invasion. The circle lights up like a magical rave, and suddenly, boom! A blinding ray flashes across the kingdom and plucks Soma, a 19-year-old orphan chilling in a library, right out of his peaceful life. Guess Truck-kun took a day off this time. Soma is taken straight to King Albert, who greets him warmly and thanks him for answering their call. Soma, clearly not in the mood, says he didn't answer anything. He got yanked into this world without warning. Still, he decides to hear them out before flipping any tables. Turns out 10 years ago a mysterious rift opened, and creatures from the demon world came flooding in. Yup, monsters. War broke out. And though the countries united to fight back, they ended up losing a big chunk of land. One-third of the kingdom is now part of the demon lord's domain. Not ideal. Now, Soma assumes they want him to be some kind of hero and go fight monsters, but nope, they're actually planning to send him off as a contribution to the Grand Chaos Empire instead. That empire borders the Demon Lord's domain and is doing most of the heavy lifting in this war, so they demand money and support from kingdoms like Elfrieden, who aren't fighting directly. Soma, not thrilled about being handed over like a sack of potatoes, demands to see the kingdom's finances. His plan? Fix their economy so they don't need to send him off. Over the next 3 days, Soma, Prime Minister Marx, and King Albert dig through the kingdom's books trying to figure out how to save it from financial doom. When they're done, King Albert casually drops a bombshell. He's abdicating the throne and making Soma the new king. Oh, and he's also engaged Soma to his daughter, Liscia. Surprise! Word of this decision spreads fast to the kingdom's three powerful dukes, Vargas, Walter, and Carmine, and also to Liscia, who immediately rushes home thinking her parents are being held hostage or something. But no, they're just sipping tea and enjoying retirement. Liscia is furious and demands an explanation. Albert calmly explains that Soma is exactly the kind of leader the kingdom needs. As for the marriage, that's up to her, but he thinks she should at least meet the guy first. Liscia heads to Soma's office expecting a Giga Chad hero type, but instead finds a tired young man drowning in paperwork. Soma, for his part, is just glad someone showed up to help. When Liscia reveals she's the princess he's supposed to marry, Soma basically shrugs and hands her a stack of documents. Liscia starts grilling him. Can he really fix the kingdom's economy in just a few years? And what about the empire's financial demands? Soma casually says he already solved that problem by selling off some national treasures. Oh, and he plans to pay the empire on the last possible day because he's petty like that. During a short break, a mage shows up and offers to test Soma for magic, just in case he picked up any powers during his summoning. Soma touches a magical gargoyle statue and it glows, confirming he does have magic. He just hopes it's something useful, not some lame party trick. Later, Liscia comes back to Soma's office and is shocked to see a whole team working with him. Even weirder, pens are floating and writing stuff on their own. Soma explains that his magic helps with paperwork, which honestly might be the most useful spell in the kingdom. He also tells her these people are helping him uncover hidden money, plug wasteful spending, and sniff out any shady investments. If anyone's caught embezzling, they'll be told to return the funds or get arrested. Even though they technically already have enough to pay the empire, Soma says they can never have too much money or manpower. Then he hands Liscia more paperwork. Welcome to the team. The next morning over breakfast, Soma proposes the kingdom reduce cotton farming and focus on soybeans and potatoes instead. They grow better in the heat and can help fix the food shortage. Smart move. After breakfast, Soma uses something called the Gemstone Broadcast System to address the entire kingdom. In his speech, he invites anyone with a unique skill or talent to come to the capital and apply to become one of his advisors. Across the land, people start packing their things and heading toward opportunity. A few days later, a formal ceremony is held to honor the 5 individuals chosen to become Soma's new advisors. One of them, however, refuses to bow to the king. Turns out, her tribe only bows to their master. This seriously ticks off Ludwin, the captain of the guard, but Soma keeps things chill and says they should respect her customs. Classy move. The non-bowing warrior is Aisha Udgard, a dark elf and, according to Marx, the best fighter in the entire kingdom. Soma uses his living poltergeist magic to dig up more info about dark elves, and sure enough, Aisha's the real deal. Instead of asking for a reward, Aisha simply requests Soma's help with a forest issue in her village. Some of the trees aren't growing right. Soma suggests they try thinning out the forest to help new trees sprout. The advice is so unexpectedly spot on that Aisha literally drops to her knees and offers to become his concubine. Oh boy, the harem begins. Next up is Juna Doma. Marx introduces her as the most beautiful girl in the kingdom with a voice to match. Soma, intrigued, asks her to sing a song live on the broadcast. He even gives her his phone and a pair of headphones, letting her listen to music from his own world. Juna sings beautifully, and when she finishes, the whole kingdom erupts in praise. Next up in the advisor lineup is Pancho Panicotta. Marx, trying to keep a straight face, says, Pancho's talent is eating. Yep, the man's a walking stomach. His legendary gluttony has taken him all over the world, trying every dish imaginable. Soma's eyes light up. He says Pancho's love for food might just save the kingdom. With that, he gives him the prestigious-sounding title of Ishizuka, aka Master of Cuisine. Pretty sure that's just fancy talk for official food taster. Fourth on the list is Hakuya Kwanmin. Marx explains that Hakuya was the only nominee for his position, thanks to a brain that apparently never forgets a thing. He's said to be the smartest guy in the entire kingdom. Soma hears this and instantly offers him the job of his right-hand man. Who wouldn't want a walking encyclopedia around? Finally, a small beast girl named Tomoe Inui nervously steps forward. Marx explains that she has a very rare gift. She can talk to animals. Tomo tries to say something to Soma, but he can't quite hear her, so he kneels down and she whispers something that absolutely stuns him. The ceremony ends there, and Soma thanks all five for showing up and agreeing to help the kingdom. But back in his office, Soma gathers Liscia, Marx, and Ludwin to share some surprising news. Tomo can also talk to demons. Naturally, everyone freaks out and demands she explain. Tomo tells them about the time she was picking flowers and accidentally bumped into a demon. When she called for help, the demon froze, not because of fear, but because he understood her. Shocked himself, the demon let her go, saying he couldn't bring himself to hurt an innocent child. Once Tomo finishes, Soma gets serious. If other nations discovered her ability, they might try to use her to communicate, or even ally with the demons. That would be a huge problem. To prevent any of that, Soma assigns the royal guard to protect her and officially labels her a national treasure. Fancy title, but basically, keep her safe at all costs. A few days later, Pancho returns from a food mission, and Soma heads out with Liscia to meet him. Pancho proudly announces that he's gathered all the food items Soma requested. The plan? Use the gemstone broadcast system, with Pancho and Juna's help, to run a kind of magical cooking show. The goal is to introduce new foods to the people and teach them how to cook, all to help fight the ongoing food shortage. So yes, the kingdom is being saved one recipe at a time. About a week later, Marx approaches Soma to say he's stepping down as prime minister. He believes Hakuya should take over. Soma agrees on one condition. Marx stays on as a court advisor. Marx accepts, and everyone's happy. Hakuya then suggests something unexpected. Soma should take a day off. More specifically, he thinks Soma and Liscia should go on a date to improve their relationship. Soma reluctantly agrees and goes to find Liscia. He finds her sparring with Aisha in the courtyard. When Soma mentions the date, Liscia is caught completely off guard but agrees. They head into town, disguised as regular students, with Aisha tagging along as their very obvious bodyguard. The three enjoy walking around the village and eventually stop by Juna's cafe for lunch. While eating, Soma makes a joke about Aisha's enormous appetite. Aisha immediately gets flustered, worrying that Soma hasn't made a move on her because she eats too much. Soma panics and quickly clarifies that he's already engaged. Awkward. Liscia, amused, casually drops a bomb. In Elfrieden, it's totally normal for royalty to have multiple wives. In fact, she says he's allowed 7. 7! But she makes it clear that she will always be the main wife. Soma silently prays for strength. Just then, Soma overhears a heated argument nearby between a fox girl and a soldier. Liscia tells him the fox girl is Kaide Foxia, and the soldier is Halbert Magna. Kaide is scolding Halbert for trying to meet with Duke Carmine, who's openly defying Soma's rule. She warns him that if he joins Carmine, it could lead to a full-on civil war. Halbert says he doesn't care. He wants to switch sides because he believes it's his chance to become someone important. Bold move, Halbert. The military breakdown of Elfrieden is complicated. There are about 100,000 soldiers total. Of those, 40,000 belong to Duke Carmine's ground army, 10,000 to Duchess Walter's navy, and 1,000 to Duke Vargas's air force. Another 40,000 make up the king's forbidden army. There used to be mercenaries from Zem to fill the gaps, but Soma ended that contract. Mercenaries are too unreliable and often switch sides, not ideal during Civil War season. Soma had already tried reaching out to the three dukes for peace talks. Crickets. Not a single reply. Left on red. Kaide pleads with Halbert to reconsider. She explains that a civil war would only help the neighboring kingdoms, who are eager to snatch up Elfrieden's land. This reminds Soma of a talk he had with Hakuya. Of the 5 surrounding kingdoms, 4 are neutral, but one is hostile, Amidonia. And surprise, surprise, they offer to support the rebellious dukes to reclaim land they lost years ago. Still, Halbert doesn't trust Soma and insists Duke Carmine must have a solid plan. He's a respected war hero after all. At that point, Soma walks up and joins the conversation. He asks Kaide why she trusts the new king so much. Kaide explains that the strength of an army depends on the quality of its soldiers and supplies, just like the strength of a nation depends on its people and resources. Then she realizes, oh no, she's been lecturing the king this whole time. Panic sets in. Later, in a private room, Soma sits with Kaide and Halbert to keep talking. Kaide nervously asks if they're going to be arrested. Soma says no, don't worry. But Halbert doesn't exactly help the vibe. He starts yelling at Kaide and moves aggressively towards Soma. In a flash, Aisha grabs him by the head and gently forces him to sit back down. Halbert freezes. That's when it really sinks in. This quiet guy is the king. Oops. Soma then asks Halbert if he realizes what siding with Carmine would mean. If he joined the rebellion, he and Kaide would end up as enemies, possibly on the battlefield. That hits hard. Halbert finally snaps out of it, realizes the mess he was about to cause, and decides to abandon his plans to join Carmine. With that, the group goes their separate ways. Back at the castle, Soma gets word that Glaive Magna has come to visit, and he's brought Halbert and Cade with him. When Soma meets them, he sees that Halbert looks like he's just been through a life lesson, courtesy of his dad. Glaive immediately apologizes for his son being, well, a bit of a meathead. As they talk, Soma decides to promote Kaide, making her a staff officer in the Royal Guard. Then he reassigns Halbert to the Forbidden Army as Kaide's assistant. Karma hits fast and hard. Glaive then asks to speak with Soma alone. Once the room is cleared, he gets serious, probably pitching some unsolicited harem advice. Later, Soma decides it's time for a little adventuring, but he's not going himself. He uses his living poltergeist magic to send a ninja doll version of himself to the Adventurers Guild. The doll joins a group taking on a beginner-level quest to explore the underground tunnels of Elfrieden. At first, everything goes smoothly. The group encounters a few monsters, but Soma's doll easily deals with them. But then they run into a much bigger problem, a giant salamander that's immune to fire magic and spits out acid like it's mouthwash. The group decides to run for it, but Soma's doll trips. One of the girl adventurers runs back to help, tossing a bomb at the salamander to buy time. The beast thrashes wildly, spraying acidic goo everywhere. Soma, still controlling the doll, jumps on the girl to shield her from getting burned. The group escapes safely and the girl thanks him for saving her life. Back in the castle, Soma carefully washes the doll, thankful that he had the foresight to add acid resistance to it. Liscia walks in and notices that the doll is way bigger than before. Soma admits he had it upgraded so he could go adventuring from his comfy throne. Liscia puts two and two together and realizes the famous adventurer people have been talking about is just a puppet. Disappointment hits hard. A few days later, Soma gathers his team and thanks them for their hard work. He announces that they're finally ready to kick off Project Vanity Nova. The plan? Build a new port city, one that'll become the biggest, most important bay hub in all of Elfrieden. Liscia is a little confused. They already have Lagoon City, which is under Duchess Walter's control. Is Soma planning to go to war with her? But Soma reassures her, this isn't a power grab. Alongside Vanity Nova, they'll build new roads connecting nearby cities. The goal is to control both sea and land trade, making supply distribution faster and more efficient. The next morning, Soma visits the future site of Vanity Nova and meets with Ludwin. As they inspect the area, Soma wonders why such a prime spot has never been developed. Ludwin explains that a nearby village claims the land belongs to the sea god, Cajun. They believe building there would bring down the god's wrath. Intrigued, Soma visits the village and speaks to its elder, Oru. The old man tells him about a time when they tried to build on the land years ago, only to have it destroyed by what they believed was a sea monster. Soma asks him to point out the monster's territory on a map. Once Oru leaves, Soma tells his group that he doesn't think it was a monster at all, but a tsunami. Even so, he takes the warning seriously and decides to shift the city's location slightly to avoid any future disasters. About a week later, Soma checks in on road construction and meets with Kaide, who's working alongside the Forbidden Army and local citizens. Liscia notices lamps being installed along the road and asks about them. Kaide explains that the lamps are filled with a type of glowing moss that'll allow nighttime deliveries, helping boost supply flow into the kingdom. Just then, a messenger bird drops off a note to Aisha. She reads it and immediately informs the group. It's from her father, Chief Woden. A landslide has hit their village and they need help fast. Soma springs into action. He sends a rescue team to the village, while Liscia returns to the capital to have Hakuya prepare emergency supplies. When the rescue group arrives, they meet Chief Woden, who grimly says they've already found 100 elves dead and 40 still missing. Soma quickly gets to work. He asks for a list of the missing and orders his group to search the debris, listening carefully for any sounds. Woden mentions that lookouts are already stationed in case another landslide happens. Soma tells his team, if a second landslide starts, evacuate immediately, even if you're mid-rescue. Safety first. Woden then asks Aisha to gather her old childhood friends to help. Their knowledge of the area will be crucial. The rescue mission begins, and Soma uses his magic to send a small wooden mouse into tight spaces to search where people can't fit. The trick works. Soma informs Halbert that he's found a survivor trapped under a tree, which completely stuns him. But right after, Soma suddenly throws up. Halbert rushes over and finds Soma shaken. He had found a mangled body through the mouse's eyes. Later, Soma and Woden meet to discuss what's next. They've located all 40 missing elves, though sadly, not all made it. They still need to tend to the wounded and begin constructing a temporary village. Just then, Aisha returns with good news. Liscia has arrived with the relief supplies Soma requested. Help is here. A few days pass and the three dukes, Carmine, Vargas, and Walter, gather in Randall for a private meeting. Vargas insists that now is the time to start the rebellion before Soma's reforms make him too powerful to challenge. Walter, though hesitant, questions if this rebellion is even a good idea anymore. She admits she didn't support Soma before, but says her top priority has always been the safety of Lagoon City. Walter brings up a letter they received from Amidonia and suggests they probably shouldn't trust them. She figures Amidonia likely sent the same letter to Soma too, and they're just waiting to see who gives them the better deal. Classic double agent behavior. She then asks Carmine why he suddenly turned his back on the new king, especially since he's always been so loyal to the crown. Carmine says it's simple, he just doesn't think Soma is fit to rule. Walter is baffled by that. She reminds him that Soma's already done a ton for the kingdom, and asks if maybe this is just a power grab in disguise. But Carmine denies it. He says he wants King Albert to take the throne back once Soma is out of the picture. Suddenly, Carla, Vargas's sister, storms in, ready to throw hands. She rants that Soma defiled Liscia and forced the king to give up the crown. Then she proudly announces she's already accepted Amidonia's offer to help them. Meanwhile, over in Amidonia, Gaius is reading that very letter, Carla's, which she signed as if it came from Carmine. Gaius chuckles, thinking Carmine must be getting old. Back in the day, he never would have accepted such an offer. Gaius then tells his son, Julius, to send reinforcements to both the king and the rebellious dukes. The plan is to invade the second Carmine kicks off his rebellion. Amadonia's domestic affairs minister, Colbert, tries to talk some sense into Gaius. He says if they invade Elfrieden, their own people might starve. Gaius responds the way any stubborn king might, with a swift kick and a sarcastic remark that ministers only say things like that to cover their own butts. Colbert then points out that if they go to war, Amidonia might be left vulnerable to a demon invasion. That's the last straw for Gaius. He's ready to pull his sword on him, but Julius cuts in, brushing off Colbert's concerns as unimportant. Gaius, staying on brand, tells Colbert he's fired, complete with dramatic flair. Back in Elfrieden, Soma finally meets with the three dukes face to face. After some quick introductions, Soma gets straight to the point. They have two choices: keep defying him and be labeled traitors, or join him and all is forgiven. Pretty generous, honestly. Walter asks what Soma plans to do with them if they join. Soma says he wants to unite all their forces with the Forbidden Army to create one massive, powerful military unit. He explains that with the surrounding kingdoms likely preparing to attack, scattered forces won't cut it. Vargas raises a valid concern. What if the centralized army becomes corrupt? Soma brushes this off and tells him flat out, if it does, you can chop off my head. Bold strategy. Walter then brings up Vanity Nova and asks what it means for Lagoon City. Soma assures her that Vanity Nova is just going to be a trade hub and resort spot. Lagoon City will still be the main naval base. With that cleared up, Walter agrees to join Soma's united force. Soma turns to Vargas next. Vargas declines, saying he'll stay neutral for now, though he did already send 100 Dragon Knights to back Carmine. Yeah, sounds super neutral. Then Soma looks to Carmine and doesn't even bother asking. The man's clearly chosen his side by sheltering criminal nobles. Soma asks why he did it. Carmine answers with pride. As a warrior, he says he felt this was a rare chance to influence the kingdom's future. A weird way to say, I like chaos, but okay. Soma, keeping things as civilized as possible, suggests that to avoid major bloodshed, their battle should end the moment one of the commanders is either captured or killed. Carmine and Vargas both agree. Just as the meeting wraps up, Liscia dramatically steps in, chops off part of her hair, and says she's fully committed to Soma. It's a symbolic gesture of loyalty, or maybe just her version of a mic drop. Afterwards, Soma privately apologizes to Walter for not being able to win Vargas over. Walter says not to worry. It was Vargas's call to back Carmine after all. Hakuya then arrives with urgent news. 30,000 Amidonian troops are heading through a mountain pass, probably aiming to seize the city of Altamura. When Gaius arrives at Altamura, he meets with the local lord Weiss. Gaius admires the land's rich soil and says it'll serve Amidonia well. Weiss bows and offers to let Gaius take over peacefully, but asks for time to convince the citizens to open the gates. Apparently, half the city wants to fight and the other half wants to give up. Gaius gives Weiss until the end of the day, but once Weiss leaves, he tells Julius they'll take the city by force anyway. He's confident Carmine will keep Soma too distracted to stop him. Meanwhile, near the city of Randall, Soma had already ordered a fortress to be built while he was off negotiating with the dukes. Now his army is fighting off some of Carmine's troops there. Kaidi and Halbert are holding the fort, literally. Things are going well until Carmine's army brings in cannons and they start doing serious damage. Just when things are getting dicey, a dark elf from Aisha's village shows up and starts sniping cannonballs midair. MVP material. Ludwin then gives the order to open the gates and lead a charge with the Forbidden Army to wipe out the cannons. Back at Randall Castle, Carmine is dealing with a group of shady nobles who are suddenly very nervous about losing. Carmine gets heated and reminds them they outnumber the king's forces 4-1. There's no way they should lose. But even he starts to suspect something's off. He notes that if Soma were actually leading the battle, he'd be attacking by now, not just holding the line. Over in Altamura, Gaius is just about ready to start his assault when one of his soldiers reports that Weiss wants another meeting. Gaius goes to see him and Weiss tries to stall again, this time offering him bags of gold and asking for one more day to persuade the citizens. Gaius, growing more annoyed by the minute, accepts the bribe but gives a warning. If the city doesn't surrender by noon tomorrow, he's burning the whole place to the ground. In Altamura, Weiss secretly meets with Walter, who's been hiding in the city the entire time. He questions whether it was wise to give Gaius all that gold instead of hiring mercenaries. Walter reminds him that mercenaries only stick around for the paycheck, and right now, time is their only ally. A little gold for a little time? Worth it. Back in Randall, Kaidi observes that Carmine's army seems smaller than expected. She guesses that he planned for a prolonged battle, but Halbert cuts her off, spotting a squadron of wyverns heading their way. The night before, in Red Dragon City, Vargas receives word from his right-hand man Ptolemy that all civilians have been evacuated. Only military personnel remain. Vargas admits he's having second thoughts. While he's okay backing Carmine, he's not thrilled about siding with corrupt nobles. He tells Ptolemy to reject any requests from his men to join the 100 soldiers already helping Carmine. Ptolemy mentions that the Forbidden Army has been seen moving toward Carmine, implying that maybe the king is letting Vargas off the hook. Vargas doubts that, thinking the smarter move would have been to take him out first, claim the Air Force, then attack Carmine. Just then, Carla enters to report that a ship on wheels being pulled by massive beasts was spotted heading toward the castle. That's right, a land ship. The ship begins to attack and Soma contacts Vargas with a final offer to switch sides. Vargas refuses, saying that even if he wanted to join Soma, it's too late. He already made a promise to Carmine. Up in the skies, Carla leads the Wyvern Knights to attack the ship, aiming to destroy its cannons. But Soma's ready. He fires back with bolt throwers, large anti-air weapons normally used to defend castles. Carla is surprised, and probably a little salty, that they're being used on a moving tank. One of her men suggests targeting the wheels to disable the ship, but Carla hesitates. She suspects Liscia might be aboard, and killing the king would definitely ruin her friendship status with her. Classic dilemma. But Carla decides to go through with it anyway, ordering her squad to take out the wheels. They succeed, crippling the ship and destroying the cannons. Victory, mais or not. As Carla inspects the scene, she realizes nobody was on board. Just a puppet controlling the weapons. She's been completely duped. Furious, she orders her knights back to the castle. But by then, it's too late. Soma had already used ancient blueprints to infiltrate the castle through hidden underground tunnels. Yup, he pulled a full stealth mode. Inside the castle, Vargas and Soma come face to face. They reintroduce themselves, and Soma asks him to surrender. Vargas refuses, pulls his sword, and Aisha steps up to duel him. Soma, because this is war, sends his ninja doll into the fight. Vargas braces for impact, but surprise. Liscia bursts out of the puppet and uses ice magic to freeze Vargas, giving Aisha the chance to knock him out. As Vargas lies defeated, Liscia steps forward and slaps a slave collar on him. She explains that the collar links Vargas to Soma. If he tries to hurt or betray him, it's game over. Right on cue, Carla arrives and sees her brother on the floor wearing his new accessory. She charges in but stops when Liscia warns her. Attack, and the collar kills Vargas. So instead, Carla kneels and accepts a slave collar of her own. Matching sibling jewelry. Soma promotes Ptolemy to temporary commander of the Air Force and tells him to team up with the Forbidden Army. Ptolemy agrees but asks what's going to happen to Vargas and Carla. Soma says their fate will be decided once the war ends. Back in Randall, Kide and Halbert are relieved to see that the wyverns fly over the fortress instead of bombing it. The bluff worked. Inside, Soma meets with Kaidi, Halbert, and Ludwin to discuss their next move. Meanwhile, in Carmine's castle, the corrupt nobles are panicking now that the Air Force is gone. They ask what to do next, but Carmine ignores them and asks Beowulf for a status report. After hearing the damage and number of hostages taken, Carmine accepts the truth. They've been completely outplayed. He admits defeat. The nobles are confused. How could they lose when their army barely suffered any losses? One of them even suggests using civilians as human shields while they escape. Carmine is horrified. Instead of entertaining their cowardice, he has slave collars slapped on all of them, and even tells Beowulf to collar himself as well. Carmine surrenders, taking full responsibility for everything. Later, Carmine opens a bottle of wine, to him by the former king. As he prepares to mourn his loss, Beowulf enters and reports that Soma has ordered Carmine's forces to march west with the Forbidden Army. Carmine realizes what Soma's up to. He's going after a bigger prize. With a smile, he finally accepts Soma as the rightful king. In a flashback, we learn that Glaive, Halbert's father, had once met with Soma in secret. He revealed that Carmine's true intention behind the rebellion was to round up all the corrupt nobles so Soma could wipe them out in one go. Carmine knew they'd always be a problem for the kingdom, and this was his way of cleaning house. Back in Altamura, Gaius prepares to launch his assault, but before he can give the order, Walter appears atop the city wall. With a flourish of magic, she conjures a giant screen. And there he is, Soma, ready for a royal TED Talk. Soma announces that both Duke Vargas and Duke Carmine have been defeated. Translation: the civil war is officially over. He follows up with another bombshell. He's declaring war on the kingdom of Amidonia. Why? Because Amidonia tried to take advantage of the civil war to reclaim lost land, exploiting tensions between the dukes and Soma. Not cool, especially when the real threat, the Demon Lord's army, is still out there. Soma then reveals his troops are already en route to the Amidonian capital, Vaughn. In Vaughn, Princess Roroa gets word that her father, Gaius, has returned. She immediately panics. She knows that if Gaius used the mountain pass, Soma probably set up an ambush. Her butler, Gaxby, confirms her fears. Only 15,000 of the original 30,000 troops made it through. Outside Vaughn, Gaius sees Elfrieden soldiers waiting for him. He fears the city has fallen, but Julius points out that the castle isn't burning and the flags haven't changed. Hope remains. Gaius rallies his weary men for one final stand. As the battle breaks out, Gaius urges Julius to run. Julius refuses, but Gaius insists. He's the main target, and no matter where he goes, they'll always be after him. Soma receives word that Gaius is approaching, and Carla asks to fight him herself, wanting to protect Liscia's honor. Soma gives the green light. But by the time Carla arrives, Gaius is already dueling with Ludwin, who seemingly lands the final blow, only to realize he'd just taken out a doppelganger. The real Gaius is still in play. Carla and Gaius finally clash. Gaius proves a powerful opponent, forcing Carla to her knees. Just as he's about to finish her, Soma's ninja doll shows up, drawing his attention. Soma enters the battlefield, and Gaius charges at him, but the doll tackles him mid-charge. Soma then orders Carla to blast the doll with fire magic. She hesitates, then obeys, and boom. The doll explodes, launching dust and debris everywhere. When the smoke clears, Gaius is still standing, though barely. His armor is wrecked, but he keeps going, until he's stopped by a volley of arrows. Even then, he manages to hurl his sword at Soma, but it falls short. With a final breath, Gaius collapses. Back in the city, Roroa is informed of her father's death. Through her tears, she calls him a fool to the very end. The next day, Soma sits in his newly conquered castle and receives updates. Ludwin reports that with Gaius dead, Julius fled west and Roroa disappeared with the finance minister and key officials. Glaive adds that morale is high and that they could easily take over all of Amidonia. Soma shuts that idea down immediately. Why? The Mankind Declaration. The Grand Chaos Empire, once the most powerful human nation, to the Mankind Declaration when the Demon Lord's domain emerged, urging all human kingdoms to unite against the demon threat. Conquering Amidonia would violate that pact. In the Grand Chaos Empire, Jeanne Euphoria informs her sister, Queen Maria Euphoria, that she plans to travel to Vaughn and negotiate with Soma to return the city to Amidonia. Maria agrees, warning that keeping Vaughn would officially break the Mankind Declaration. Meanwhile, in Vaughn, Hakuya informs Soma that a 1,000-strong force is approaching, and their vanguard is already near. With pressure mounting, Soma decides to unwind a bit. He goes into town with Juna and Tomo to enjoy a festival celebrating peace between Elfrieden and Amidonia. After shopping, the trio finds a peaceful spot to rest until they're approached by Jean Euphoria herself. Juna readies for battle, but Jean quickly assures them she comes in peace. She even apologizes for yanking Soma into their world, admitting they never thought the summoning would actually work. Soma, a little confused, asks who she is. Jean introduces herself and compliments Soma on everything he's achieved, especially his impressive harem growth rate. And that's where the story ends, for now. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next recap.